It's hard to stay motivated.
Okay, good evening, everybody. We have a quorum of each of the boards here, so let each board call their own board meeting to order. We'll start off with what we're going to do this evening. The ad hoc committee met last Thursday, and we had a very good conversation, but it was surprising in some ways. We met, and we had a discussion that included an overview of some of the things that this joint committee might want to accomplish, and also about how that might proceed. However, there's some things which came out of that which we'd like to share and make sure everybody is thinking about the same kinds of things. The quality of life in Granby and how that relates to whatever income Granby has still results in a basic look at income and expenditures, some of which may be intertwined, but no matter how you take a look at the project, it really comes down to having to do with those two things. The income part is always potentially exciting, and the expenditure part, not so much. You know, what else is new? But what complicates the project is that there are really competing time frames for the two aspects. For example, generating significant amounts of new income is a long-term project. There are some shorter-term possibilities, which we discussed, are going to be discussed, but we need to keep in mind the longer-term realities. If we're looking for larger amounts of significant income, it's going to take longer to develop that. And even the short-term increases in income, which we know that there are some possibilities have to be considered as available not just for short-term use, but also for putting aside as part of the capital that's almost inevitably required for longer-term projects. Think sewers, for example. The expenditures, however, are a much shorter term pressure, and the time is getting shorter on that all the time. Despite all this, the ad hoc committee all agreed that before anything else could be done, the first thing that had to happen, and we had some views from some outside consultants on this, that we have to be able to make a self-assessment of Granby. We need to know what our starting point is. And that's the SWOT exercise, which we're going to be doing tonight, and why we agreed that we would start with that, and really need to start with that. The possibility of heading down wrong paths is just too high to proceed without that. We want everybody to have the same kind of understanding of exactly what it is that we have available in Granby and exactly the kinds of things that we think we might be able to get. This also then led to, we had originally set up the meeting to talk about putting together a subcommittee structure to take a look at problems, but we realized that even that has to really wait until we get some other things straight in all of our minds first and get some agreement on some things. Finally, the last thing is that we talked a little bit about, there's a Selectboard Economic Committee, which is in the process of being developed. The idea between the two of them right now is that this Selectboard committee, subcommittee, there's no Selectboard committee, appointed committee, would have an oversight of the sort of work that's done here, but they're not going to start any actual projects themselves. The actual projects are going to be done through this committee. There's no point in having two different groups go off on two different directions on looking at these things. So keep that in mind as the ideas around the economic committee of the Select Board get developed further. That and it's important, I think, for the town that they know that the Select Board is looking with some kind of overview over everything that's going on for this. So that's my brief summary of the overview of where we are. I'm going to turn it over to Jay, who's going to talk a little bit about some key items for this.
Okay. Thank you, John. At the last meeting, we were all given different action items, and I'm going to go over mine right now with you. One of the things that we, as John mentioned, we need somebody with all this experience to bring us to the forefront where we want to go. So I contacted the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and they are going to give us their lead economic development growth planner to use. in addition to some time that we'll get because we are a member of Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. We found some federal grant money.
Ooh, nice.
So I don't know how long it'll last, depending on how much we need it, but with the fiscal year 2019 starting in 1 July, there's probably going to be some more state grant money available. As soon as that's in, it'll go before the appropriate people, and then we'll get that done to keep the things moving. Because one of the things that Rob had mentioned, I know he's here somewhere, I saw him. Oh, there he is. Talking about a facilitator to go through, or somebody else that we'd have to bring in as an outside consultant, in addition to Lori. So we'll have to look at that and go forward from there. Okay, what you see up there now is what Pioneer Valley Planning Commission sent us for last week. This is a sample of an economic development strategy plan outline. And I can scroll it for you if you want, but you should have all received it in your mail. If you have not, I will get it out to everybody. I gotta find my little scroll here. I keep looking at the TV and I forget I gotta look at the computer. But you can see all the different areas that economic development and growth is. And believe it or not, for every one of those bullets, there is a grant. The question is, do you apply for it or you don't apply for it? Do you qualify? Do you don't qualify? It depends on the makeup of Granby. But it's all things for us to keep in mind when we're going through this on what to look for. Because the bottom line, Granby is asset rich because we pay everything in cash, but we're cash poor because even our stabilization accounts are not up to the 2005 levels. If we had Department of Revenue come in today for 2018, I imagine they'd probably boost them up even higher than 2005. So we have to look at that as well. Okay, we're looking, like I said, to expand the grant funding for state and federal. Now, on the 17th of July, at 6:30, if you want to note that down, and we'll send it out. Lori is going to come in and start the presentations and walking it through based upon the data that we develop here tonight. Because we'll forward that data to her. She already has Granby's master plan, so she can take that and see how it fits in. So she'll be updated on the town of Granby before she gets here on the 17th of July. So the information that we glean out tonight, I say again, will be forwarded to her, and then she'll put it together. And again, to remind everybody, it's Tuesday, 17 July at 6:30 at the new library. That's when she is booked. And we selected that based upon her availability, because she does have limited availability, so we took the date we could. Now, we realize we have 3 different committees or boards, whatever you want to call them here. We have 3 different entities here. We all have our own responsibilities to do, and we're doing this in addition to our regular responsibilities. So we have to be conscious of that. And that is one reason that the joint committee, which we're all are here now, the way I was explained to me, because I'm the newly elected person, that this was originally created to improve the communication between the 3 entities. It was to address immediate issues, such as unanticipated expenses, so they don't fall through the cracks, and to look towards the annual budget to make it a smoother process. Now, am I missing something here, or is that why all this was created?
And also to figure out how to raise more money.
Well, that's true too, but everybody in town is looking to raise money. And bringing that is, the select board has already established a economic development growth committee, but we haven't written the charge yet. And as soon as we write the charge, then this will go out. As John said, as far as this committee is concerned, they'll just gather information, use it as oversight, don't want to interfere with all the thought processes that's going on, because we want the 3 entities to work together, as I stated previously, the reason for this. With the Economic Growth Committee, their primary responsibility with the oversight of all departments and all boards and committees in the town of Granby to see what's going on. Also, the select board is going to be sharing the information to us that you normally don't hear about, that the finance committee may hear about, but the school won't hear about, and that's one reason I think these three entities were formed in the beginning. An example of that.
Can I just ask a quick
Sure.
question for clarification?
Yeah.
Are there two committees, subcommittees, economic growth and economic development?
No, economic development and growth by the select board is all one committee together.
Okay,
That is all one committee put together,
gotcha.
okay?
It'll still be put together.
Yeah,
It's in the process.
yeah. We're gonna start out with 5 people. If it has to grow to more, it has to grow to more. But we'd rather walk before we start running. Just as what we're gonna do here tonight and with Lori on the 17th. Some of the information sharing that we can do for you, Granby has already received a DLTA grant. It's called a District Local Technical Assistance, if you want the true title. But all we care about, we got money, right? What is it gonna be used for? Granby's permitting process, everything from dog licenses to zoning to pick anything you get a permit, stormwater, is all going to be documented and flow charted on how it's supposed to work. To make it better for the residents of Granby and any applicant and any board or committee in Granby, so there's one process and everybody knows what it is and where to go and how to do it. That grant is due to expire 31 December of this year. So we're not going to see it immediately, but by the end of this calendar year, we will have something in place which we've never had before. Along with that, was it a couple Thursdays ago, whatever it was? I forget what date. I met with the Lieutenant Governor, the Energy and Environmental Affairs Secretary, and the Climate Change Secretary for Massachusetts. And Granby was awarded a Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness grant. The basis of that grant is they're going to do a study here in Granby, and they're going to look at everything in Granby and the infrastructure and everything involved with weather for climate change. Bridges, roads, culverts, dams, you name it, they're going to look at everything. And then they're going to give us a scorecard on what they are. We already know in Granby we got problems because the state has already written it up. Now, what the state will take all of these items, which I just listed, and they are going to put a master priority list for the state. And they are going to start knocking these projects off. So depending on where we fall in priority, where we will be. And when they do a project, they're not going to be suffering from a cap of money. They're going to fully fund that project and get it done off the board and move on to the next. There's not going to be coming back like you see 91, we're going to do a third this year and a third next year. I'm told that's not going to happen. They're going to fund it, fix it, and forget it. That's what they called it. Within that being, right now, we have also Chapter 90 money. I don't know if people are familiar with that. Okay, we get that for roads. We and every other municipality lost 1/3 this past year from the state. Last year we got 300,000, this year we only got 200,000. And that goes into local road maintenance. Nothing to do with the state, the local roads. In addition to that, we're looking at a meta grant, Municipal Energy Technical Assistance grant. There's a whole list of projects on it. The select board will make the decision on 10 July on which one it is, and then we're going to put that application in for that grant. These grants, from being on the Energy Committee, are very important. And I'm going to tell you right now, the dollar value of the grant doesn't mean a whole lot. If the state funds a grant and a study, we don't have to explain from our own consultants if they're qualified or not, because the state has already said they are. That's why it's important to get those studies funded by either the federal or the states, because there's no questions. If Granby does a study like Granby did a study on West Street School, if we were to go forward with that for some assistance and money, we'd have to justify everything because they weren't federal and state people ever involved in it. And that can add up to a lot of money. That's why we like to stay within the state and the federal grants. With that being the case, I can tell you right now, Granby has a problem with the dams. Granby has a problem with roads. Granby has a problem with bridges. And I can tell you right now, just on the energy side alone, it's about $1 million of improvements needed in our municipal buildings. And that's got nothing to do with the structure of the buildings. So there's a lot of money that is required to keep Granby going. And this is where increasing our revenue is very important. It's also very important how we spend the money that we do have, because, for example, if we get 1 to 2 inches of rain tonight, like they're predicting, if we get into a lot of trouble with the dam or something like that, where's the money going to come from? There's no money in stabilization to cover it. And what would happen then will be up to the voters, because it's not up to us. As elected officials, we can only recommend. The voters make the ultimate choice. But as far as any safety and health issues caused by anything, the select board can automatically invoke its powers and get it fixed for the safety and health of the people. And that's under Massachusetts general law. But if it doesn't involve safety and health, the select board can't. For an example, say one of Dave DeRoche's dump trucks broke. Well, that's not a safety and health issue. So we can't invoke that to get the money. It has to go through the special town meeting and the normal process. And the question is, where are you going to get the money? Because the stabilization funds are pretty well depleted. And I know every department in Granby is bare bones. So we have to increase the revenue pie. And I think everybody here is in agreement with that. Okay, with that being said, the only thing I was asked to do was to show people what a zoning map on Granby. This is a zoning map of Granby. The legend is over here on the left. When you go out to talk to investors or you talk to anybody about bringing business into Granby, you have to know the zoning. You have to know what can go in what part of Granby's town. And the only way these zoning maps can be changed is they have to go before the Granby Planning Board, which Glenn chairs, and then what Glenn would do, if they concur with it, then they would send it before the voters to change the maps. So can they be changed? The answer is yes. But the change is similar to a bylaw change, which we're going to be going through shortly for marijuana. So if you watch that.
And these were just changed not too long ago.
2016.
Yeah, so they were, I was updated for the purpose of enabling Granby to grow in the future. So they expanded some of the general business areas and overlays too for that reason. So,
Like right down here, this is your industrial park area, right here. This is your general business general park overlay right here. Your business area is mainly located in 5 corners and then throughout 202. So that's where the area is. The rest of the area that you see no colors in is all zone residential single house, with the exception of this one item up here, which is residential zone multi-dwellings, because that's where the condos are. But you can look at the map. Majority of Granby is zone residential single housing. Just so everybody understands that. Because Emery was on the planning board at one time, so I know he does. And it's very important for you to understand, if you're talking about inviting somebody into Granby for business, where are you going to put them? What are you going to show them? If you show them a site they can't build there, you've done a lot of work for nothing. So it's very important to know this. And if anybody wants a copy of this, I'd be more than happy to email a copy of this out. Because as you can see, you can blow it up however you want to make it easy on any computer. And it works great on my TV, let me tell you, because it's a bigger screen. Because I got a 70-inch TV at home, and it makes it a lot easier.
Can you just go ahead and do that? Email that?
Yeah, you want to put an action for me, John, to email that? And I will email this to you. Now, did everybody get that outline that I showed first?
I do not.
Okay, then you want to give me action, and I will email everybody the PVC outline to make sure everybody does it. If you get a duplicate, you get a duplicate. But I tell you, I'm going to have to take one of John's emails, because I don't have all your email addresses, and I'm going to have to create a new email group. And then it'll come out. Probably about 4 o'clock this morning or something like that, knowing me. Glenn always teases me because I stay up too late.
I won't be getting a response from them.
No, but I sent him out in the morning. With that being said, my time is up, unless you have questions. That's what I was asked to present. That's leading on into Emery.
Thank you. Does anybody, not quite, does anybody have any questions from Jay? Okay, then we'll turn it over to Rob for a few minutes. He's going to tell us about some interesting things.
The thing for the TV.
Sure.
Nice.
Hey.
Hopefully.
Oh, just an HDMI. I got hardwired, because I can do it wirelessly, but then I'd have to configure his computer.
Okay, so I'm not sure I have HDMI for, maybe I do over here.
Let me see what the port look like. No, don't squish it in, it's a USB port. See what the port looks like. That's an HDMI right there. You had it upside down.
There you go.
There you go.
There we go.
They should pick it up in a second. There you go.
All right, so I've created a website for us, basically on WordPress, where we can go and share ideas. It's set up as a blog, so people who basically have permission, which I can open up to everyone, will be able to go. We have various links that are built into it in terms of site pages, including this one, which is a link basically for where we can go plan. So we have a bunch of resources that are already listed, including our current master plan of all the other towns. Chris at Emery sent it along. Jay, I think in terms of economic development from other towns as well. Your articles and presentations, the outline that you had just laid up a few minutes ago is up here as well, in the sample plan. And also I put up here an idea generation guide, which basically is a format that we can follow in terms of brainstorming, in terms of how you generate ideas, and then basically selection process, that type of stuff. So
The sample plan is the planning map. That,
same one,
so you're
same one, that basically
You don't have to
you don't
send
need to
out.
send out because it's up here.
It's
So it's
up on
found
the
at
website.
basically
Is this link
townofgranby.wordpress.com,
sent out to
and I'll basically make it, finalize it, make it a little bit better, clearer, that type of stuff, but it's laid out like that. In terms of brainstorming, I talked to a guy by the name of Burton Crowder. He is the Associate Director of the Berkeley Entrepreneurship Center at UMass. He says, sure, be happy to come in, be a facilitator. Only fly on the ointment is that he's actually leaving the university, so we're going to do it. We have to do it before the end of July. But UMass runs things called Idea Jams, which is a lot like the idea party that we're talking about. So he's done a boatload of this stuff anyways. He charges $250 an hour. He says that he would charge us anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500 as a flat fee for running a session for the whole town, that type of stuff. He then basically helping us in terms of figuring out what are the better ideas and where do we proceed from there, around which we can then form subcommittees to go investigate, is this feasible or not feasible in the long run, that type of stuff.
By the end of July.
By the end of July. If we can't do it by the end of July, he may name a guy named Stephen Grant, who also does the same thing, and I've reached out to him and basically had a few emails back and forth. Haven't talked price, but these guys all charge about the same thing. Mm-hmm. So if we can plan on a budget of that around $1,500, I think we'd be in pretty good shape.
And as John said when he opened up, this is not a short-term thing. This is going to take a couple years to complete everything, at a minimum. When you all agree, the people that are involved in this?
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, it's going to take that while. We can start off with a short-term revenue to help us get going, but right now, when we're so cash poor, we can't invest it to do it. We have to find an investor that wants to come in and invest it. And unless we can create more revenue for ourselves, so we'd have that to spend money to make money. Because right now, we really don't have it.
Yeah, well,
Go
I
ahead.
don't want to give people the misleading information that we're a poor town, because we're not. We're not a poor town. We function very well. We have a lot of good qualities of our town with schools, police departments, libraries, safety center and stuff like that. So, I mean, obviously, we're trying to generate more revenue outside being the burden on the residential taxpayer. So I don't want people, this keeps on floating around, well, we're a cash poor town.
This is where.
No, we're not,
This is
so.
where facilitated with brainstorming can help us in terms of what are these other potential money-making ideas that we can then grow, develop, hopefully turn into a good public-private partnership that actually relieves the burden from the town residential. And if we play our cards right and we develop money-making ideas that are long-term profitability for the town, we can even reduce the tax rate. So that's the real goal here.
Glenn, I think when we're taking through the SWOT exercise, I think you're talking about would be one of the things that would come up as part of that for being able to go out and actually put some numbers and some other concepts around your idea there so that we can use that as a way to get people to have the same understanding about exactly what the nature of Granby is. And I think you're...
We start throwing words out there, I think people...
Right, and we have to, and we have to, I think, be able to point to something that says, here is what we found out, and here are the kind of measures that we used, and it shows that we are not in this situation, and are not in that situation.
All right, so in terms of the idea party, or the idea jam, I actually like their name better. What are we looking at in terms of calendar? Is the end of July unrealistic? I should just move on to Steve Grant?
I would think, let's move on to Steve, because I think we
Okay.
want to be up against the wall.
Only because I think in the summer.
Yeah, I thought the
it's
same
more
thing, but yeah.
challenging.
I mean, July is next week, and
Yeah.
Why don't we let Lori, since we already got her coming, give us a little bit of a foundation to establish where we are today? And then we can bring the facilitators in to see how we can enhance where we are today and then start looking to the future. Because she's already lined up to come in.
Well, yeah, she'll be here July 17th.
Yes.
So, after that. But we should look, to the fall?
I'm thinking probably,
Yeah.
that's when,
Keep
vacations
that.
are over and,
Yep.
because we really do want as
Do we
many residents
have a town
as
meeting in the
possible.
fall?
Only if it's a special town meeting, so it'd have to be requested for a specific reason.
Okay, I didn't know if we had anything already scheduled.
The only thing that I'm aware of
There
right
is?
now, we're gonna have one. Yeah, we're gonna have
Oh,
one,
that's
the
August? I
marijuana
didn't
one
realize
is the
that.
only one I know of. And if somebody wants something at a special town meeting, they better hurry up and start with a public hearing and then posting in the paper, because otherwise you're gonna miss that date.
Yeah, the reason I asked was, in terms of an idea jam, an idea party, if we could maybe schedule it around a town meeting, basically.
In other words,
It
after
doesn't-
the town
It
meeting.
doesn't have to be a town meeting.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have to be a official
No, it doesn't,
town-
but in
town
terms of getting
meeting,
people there.
yeah. And I don't think we want to have it while we're doing something else.
Okay,
Yeah, to tack it on to the marijuana discussion, you could have maybe get a different crowd of people.
And it kind of drags things down,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
this
not only
is-
that, we don't know the duration. I mean, you said it could be 15 minutes or 3 hours. We don't know what it is, so we don't want to tag along something
Yeah.
that may
okay,
not happen.
right, well,
all right. So I talked to Steve. Yeah,
well, it's not just marijuana, there's a lot of other, if there's proposed changes to the bylaws, that's what.
okay.
I mean, yeah, and one particular one is the cannabis, as far as it's gonna affect the town.
Are the rest of the bylaw changes going to be on that meeting in August?
They could be, depending if the people have gotten them ready to go. I know the planning board has, put some together that they're looking to bring into that meeting. in town.
I do have one other question. Getting back to the, kind of to have sort of an expense account or a budget, for $1,500. We want to have some access some funds. And I know we talked about it initially last time, and you guys had mentioned maybe talking about it more at a select board meeting with Chris, and maybe freeing up, even if we could dump, you know, 5,000 or so, whatever, into an account, knowing that everything has to be voted on, you know, so it's obviously all tracked, but having access to, you know, little things like paying some facilitator, or I don't know, maybe printing up some brochures, or whatever the case may be. I think we need to have access.
That's something that the select board could, we could talk about, and maybe on the agenda for the town meeting, to appropriate funds, so we can have this, you know, this committee, and those funds there we can use to, you know, develop further.
I remember, what was the select board's budget?
Not much.
That's very deceiving, that number, very, because that pays for, when you see the select board budget, you think it's a big number. We don't see it. It pays for the town administrator, it pays for the accountant, it pays for the treasurer, it pays for the secretary. That's where all the money goes. It doesn't go to the actual elected selectmen.
No, it goes.
We're gonna have to really, like, this is why July won't work in my mind, is because we're really gonna wanna make sure the town knows that this is gonna happen.
Yeah,
And has time to prepare for it a little
Yep.
bit, and then show up with some ideas.
Yep.
That's gonna take some time
Time to
to
do.
work out and make sure.
yeah, so fall probably makes more sense.
And it does require some
Training.
funds. I mean, simple things like, you know, I was thinking as I saw the Charter Day banner still up, I thought, whoa, wouldn't that be a great place for another banner for whatever our slogan becomes, you know, and maybe one outside of, you know, East Meadow, and maybe another
Yeah,
one
that's a good
strategically placed somewhere. But, you know, it's not gonna be expensive, but it's gonna require some available funds.
A budget amount is part of the planning process. It's unlikely anybody would have much of an appetite to just say, all right, here's $5,000, spend it wisely. Instead, they're going to want to know what you're going to be spending it on, and roughly how much is needed.
Well, that's why I was.
So that it's got to be done.
Charge and an action,
Right.
somebody goes out and gets some kind of estimate, you come
Right.
back, you decide as a committee, you vote on it, and you're tracking, just like anything else.
Yeah.
You're tracking.
I think that after the July 17th meeting, we're going to have a much better idea of a lot of these kinds of things. That meeting, among other things, will help us inform ourselves of exactly how some of these things are going to have to be worked out. So, but, and we had that discussion with the ad hoc group too, that there is going to be a need for some funds to be able to do some of these things.
Yeah, we don't want it to become
no,
an
I think,
obstacle.
Yeah, I think everybody's in agreement on that. Yeah.
All right, that's all for me.
Thank you. Maybe you would email me the website URL.
That's
Now,
what I was
is this-
hoping. Would that be too much to ask?
No.
To just send a link?
No,
So-
I'll be happy to do that. You know, it's
Yes.
right there, town@GranbyWordPress.com, but yeah, I'll send it out there. So,
Now, this is accessible to read by anybody.
right now it is, yeah.
And at some point, there's going to be a way for people to,
There is
have
now.
authority to,
Yeah, people can, as of right now, people can basically go hit write and post ideas and stuff like that.
anybody can.
Anyone can at this point.
Okay.
So I can build in some type of authentication to show that you're a resident of the town of Granby. It'll be pretty limited, but I can do that.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
We don't want this to turn into a local version of what the Springfield newspaper used to have.
No.
No,
No, we don't want trolls.
no.
Yeah, we don't want to have .ru, basically people signing in.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Okay.
Okay, now to the heart of today's meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Emery, who's going to take us through a SWOT analysis. And Emery, which side do you want to work?
Probably that way.
Oh, that way?
So let me start with this. I imagine that we had a larger group. What we wanted to do, probably you are all familiar with SWOT analysis. Typically in any strategic conversation planning, all these types of master plan conversations, we do some type of SWOT analysis to really get into some level of detail as to what are the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and risks that exist around an organization, a town, whatever we are working on. So what we wanted to do, this is not going to be a full-blown SWOT analysis, because first, we don't have a lot of people, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have a much better version when we have the participation from folks in town. The main reason why we wanted to have it tonight is before July 17th, we wanted to at least create a baseline that we can share with Lori when she comes in, and then she can initiate her conversation with us based on that. So what it is, for those of you who may not be familiar with SWOT, it's basically the initials of those four terms: strengths, threats, and SWOT.
Opportunities.
Opportunities and threats. So I went the wrong way. Strengths and weaknesses are internal. So when we think of strengths or weaknesses, we are thinking of what certain things exist that we think would be considered our strengths as a town. Weaknesses would be things that we think, things that we're not necessarily doing that well, or where we have some potential issues from your perspective. This is all part of brainstorming, so there's really no cap, there is really no judgment pass, there is no debate around it. We're going to ask you to put what you think would be the strengths and weaknesses. The opportunities and threats or risks are typically outside looking or external factors. So you look at environmental factors when you're looking at those. What are some of the things that are outside Granby, outside us, that might be considered an opportunity with respect to our work, or that may be considered a threat or risk as we go forward with respect to our town? So those are not things that are currently in town, but those are external factors that are impacting our town. So we'll leave it at that, very simple. I will, in fact, make this as interactive as possible. You ask which way, I will ask everybody to stand. I brought Post-it notes. Hopefully you all have your pens at least. There you go. So we'll select a color. Let's go with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Then based on that, we can use that board. Yep. Or what I can do, I can at least use one of the flip charts. It would be easier to actually carry afterwards. So I will do this. I'll take another one. Okay, this gives us enough real estate to work on.
You can take down that other map there if you want. Do you want to?
No, I think we have enough room here. I wish we had hundreds of Post-it notes, but probably we're not going to get there. So if you're not clear, I'm happy to repeat what it is, but if you are, then all we have to do really is to pick the color, if I can remember what we picked.
Just do an SWOT and put it across the top.
That's what I'll do.
That's exactly what I'm going to do right now.
So you want one item on each sticky note? Or
Yeah, just one thing per Post-it, please. So what I'm going to do, just give me the top one. Thank you. All right, so here's what we're going to do.
I'm all about stickies.
Zone strength. This side will be weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There we go. And then it's yours. So when you think of Granby, what are some of the things that we're doing your strength? What are some of the things that we're not necessarily doing well, or some things that you would consider issues in our town? When we look at our town from outside in, what are some of the things, what are some of the things that are opportunities potentially, potentially helping us in the short run or long run, just we're gonna put them next to opportunities. Similarly, things that may become risks for us, that are external factors currently, but that may become risks for us in the short run or long run. I hope this is not one of those silly ones that never stick.
And you know, just write down things and then hand them.
We'll just pass it. You go stick it before yourself. The only thing when you stick something on the board, make sure nobody else has already put it there.
Well, we do it as a group and go down.
You can do it that way too.
What is it?
Well, just have someone write
Good
things
job.
up there, if you don't, you might even subscribe.
Behind you.
I'll scribe.
I mean, we're all here, there's not many of us, so you just.
We can do that, yeah.
Do we have a marker?
Well, there are two different ways of doing it. That's the traditional brainstorming, so somebody says something, we write it. This version, we call it brainwriting, because, sometimes folks don't want to say things, or just want to write it on Post-it notes. We don't want to really curtail things, we limit things, we ask everybody to use Post-it. I'm fine with either version.
I don't think anybody here is shy.
And the thing with drug, usually hearing other people talk about gets you thinking.
Yeah.
All right, so what I will ask then, if you want to be our scribe, thank you for that. So when everybody shares their ideas, their thoughts verbally, then let's not debate immediately, let's just jot them down first so that we don't stop anybody from sharing their
We
thoughts.
have a marker, because I don't know that my pen is gonna be
What do you need, marker?
a marker just so you can see a little
I
better.
think I have one.
You know, it's about my own book.
I'm usually prepared, my professor.
Oh, it's still
That's what my professor had.
Anybody? Just tell me which one.
About heritage.
We don't know.
Heritage for strength?
Yeah.
Sheep housing.
As a strength?
Uh-huh.
Inexpensive.
Not cheap.
No, we didn't talk about that.
I said, strong cultural identity, or just strong identity.
Land?
Yep, that's what I was thinking, that's land.
Small town,
Yeah, land is available everywhere.
small town appeal.
Friendly people.
My state up there?
The first one we'll figure that. Going to work.
Near higher ed.
School system.
Agriculture, farming.
I'm not gonna be trying to spell hard words tonight.
We're a safe town.
Well, we just got on the weaknesses, and we'll put the two obvious ones on the table, water and sewer. Those are two obvious weaknesses that we do have.
I have no clear vision for the future,
Lack of commercial tenants.
Yeah,
lack of diversity.
lack of diversity. Lack of attractions, no restaurants, that type
Yeah.
of thing.
Bedroom community.
What was it that you said this time? It's not
Lack of commercial base for taxes.
one of our weaknesses, one of our strengths is a bedroom community.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword for us.
It is a double-edged
Yeah.
sword, you're right.
But it could be.
Safe.
Could be a blend.
Yes, sir.
Safe town?
Okay.
Mhm.
I think one of our weaknesses, I don't know how to say it, is that everyone on either side of us has developed with like the restaurants and things, so we're kind of in
Yeah,
a dead zone, but I don't know how to.
we're a town that people drive through to get somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to lack of attractions, I think, there's nothing really to stop on
Okay.
216 for, right?
What a Tony.
It's a state road.
Actually, that's a good point. I would put 202 as a strength.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
And I
And
would also,
116?
Yeah, we have one
Yeah.
fifty.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I was gonna say 116 too, because there's a lot of traffic that
Yeah,
goes.
two arteries that go right through our town.
Yeah. You just have to how to capitalize on them.
One of the things is a lot of no current parking problems.
The strength.
Weaknesses, nothing really for kids to do.
Would that be like a lack of activity?
Well, when I think of lack of attractions or activities, I'm thinking more the restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And activity
Is that weakness?
Yeah.
schools.
yeah, I'm talking about, yeah,
Yeah.
after school stuff, and
In a stick.
they hang us in,
Well, I don't know, I have kids in town, I feel like they have plenty to do. Like, my kids are all involved in stuff within town.
Yeah, I mean-
In the GAA and, you know.
I would say we are pretty close to major highways. I think to
At this time?
90, to 91.
We are.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We got nice.
Which is why we're a veteran community, because everyone lives here
Yeah,
and
it
lives
does.
elsewhere.
As a veteran community, we're a 20-minute drive from a whole lot of stuff.
You can put down the airport, you can put down mass transit with the trains. I mean, we're not far from that at all either.
So really, I mean, 20 minutes,
Right.
you're at 91 or a Mass bike or.
Mhm. You can go east, west, north, or south, or you can get public transportation.
Other weaknesses for us are the towns surrounding us have high attraction rates, like Amherst.
Yeah, the Pipe College. And,
Yeah, but things that people go to be there.
Parks,
For competition
recreational areas.
Like Dufresne's Park,
Yeah, the frames are the
Brown
mountain
Mountain.
range
Yeah.
to hike and.
Relatively high tax rate.
That would be a weakness. Yeah.
What about indifference?
Yeah, difference is a big weakness for us.
Say it again?
Indifference.
In terms of apathy, is that what you're?
Just in terms of, you know, we have a hard time getting people to sort of show up.
Like voter turnout, it's always pretty low.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good weakness.
Yeah.
A lot of these things can be characteristics of being a bedroom community.
But it's still,
Whether
but
the
it's-
positives and negatives.
But it's still
There are a lot of
weaknesses.
things that follow from that. Yeah.
I think it's
Well, I think what it causes is you're never quite sure what people want, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of scuttlebutt, but no one, then the people that are that most anxious about things might come up, but they don't necessarily have a following.
So there's a lot of assumptions that come out of that,
Mhm.
right? Like committees, they assume things because we're not exactly sure. You know, we go on what we think is kind of, you know, the voice of the people,
Local
right?
minority.
Exactly, but you're not really sure about how the majority of people are thinking. I like that term right there,
What
like
did
the
you say?
vocal,
Vocal minority.
yeah.
Mhm.
But they're so vocal, but I don't know about you guys, but I walk away often thinking, are we really getting to the heart of what is going on?
Mhm.
But the other thing that makes, it's a weakness that goes along with that, you say, is the town meeting structure.
Okay.
Oh, God, thank you for saying that.
I think another weakness is the perception of town is basically we're a bunch of hicks.
Yeah, perception,
Yeah,
I think. perception
Perception
period.
is- the perception is we're a bunch of
Why did
hicks.
South Hadley turn us down for regionalization?
Oh, I can tell you, I was there. I was one of the test case kids where we went, they were beyond insulted that we were outperforming in almost every class. Our grades were higher, we had better, I mean, we're talking, feels like a million years ago. It was my junior year, it was 1991. I was one of the students sent to South Hadley, and one of the mirrors when they came to Granby, the South Hadley kids sitting in Granby classes were completely lost, and the Granby kids were taking over the South Hadley classes, and we were supposed to be the less than town. Like, we were perceived, like you say, as a bunch of hicks with
Yeah.
nothing doing. And then we came in and they started looking at things and we're like, wow. And that's when they started South Hadley as a great place to live, those bumper stickers. And then they voted us down for regionalization.
Part of, what we're perceived as hicks do, that I'm hearing, is a perception of people don't want to move into town because the sense of we're all incredibly conservative and therefore not a good place to come because we won't be welcome.
And I think also one of our weaknesses, but I don't know how to put it in a bullet point, is there seems to be like for lack of a better word, like a class system. There's like an us versus them mentality. There's a lot of my peers will say, well, all the old folks in town are going to vote against it, or, just, it's kind of an us versus them within the town.
And the us versus them,
Goes either way.
and it goes in a lot of different ways. It's conservatives
That's the
versus
world.
liberals.
That's the way the world runs.
Yeah, but us versus them, and I think also perception of hostility.
Yes.
Yes.
Local versus me versus town, whatever. I mean,
Right.
Never really.
Counties versus,
Yeah.
the other strength though is that we are politically diverse, right? We have, wasn't the last election like 51% Republican, 49%?
Yeah, but we're not,
So,
I would say GCAN.
but we're not ethnically diverse.
no. I mean, but we do
Not every town.
have differing
Yeah.
political
I
views.
think one of our strengths, believe it or not, is McDuffie, because not too many towns,
That's
cities
true.
have private
That's
schools
true.
the size of McDuffie. Not just that, how many people come through our town and have children that go to McDuffie?
It's also a weakness because we've lost a lot of students to McDuffie.
Yeah, so put down for weakness as well.
But again, it's like a double-edged sword though. because
Absolutely.
we're losing the kids to McDuffie, but those kids that we're losing from Granby that are going to McDuffie would have probably gone to a private school regardless of whatever town they were in.
It's just interesting that a lot of these characteristics are strengths and weaknesses.
But I just think more of a, and when I speak about McDuffie is that you have people not just from other cities and towns in Massachusetts, but from other states, from other countries. And we get to showcase Granby, and we don't showcase it.
True.
So that's an opportunity, right? to
That's an
showcase-
opportunity.
Yeah,
Well, that's.
yeah, the
that's
country
nice
is
to
not
know.
doing it as an interest.
Right, opportunity is external,
So we're,
so you can't put it in weakness. Okay, we're changing colors.
And McDuffie might be showcasing Granby. We don't really know because I don't think there's a relationship. A
Definitely.
strong enough relationship to really know how much they, or how little they showcase.
There is a relationship. For example, they asked to be in the 250th parade,
that's right, I've got
and they
it.
were in it.
Right, and I think the point is that Glenn was trying to do is that the students come here and have their parents, but they don't spend their money here, they just kind of drop their
Be a
kids off.
restaurant or a hotel or whatever.
There's nowhere to spend their money.
Right.
There's no way to
So
spend
is that an opportunity then, somewhere to give those kids, that's where we put an opportunity, somewhere to spend money?
If they are internal to Granby, then we'll put them under strengths and weaknesses.
So is that, yes?
Yeah, the opportunity would be, I don't know, if we believe that the economy changing or the casino opening and this and that, those are external stuff, we put those in there.
Like, for example, opportunities, you can put down grants and reimbursables. Okay, those are opportunities that you put in for,
Yes,
but
those
you
are
don't know if you're gonna
external.
get, they're extra.
Yeah.
And the weakness of declining state funding?
That would be a
That's
threat.
that's a threat.
That's
a threat.
definitely a threat. I have that same thing that, and it's year after year, it gets worse.
Okay, one of our other opportunities is open land. If we can use it.
Well, that's an internal thing we put on the straits, land.
Yeah, I would put it on restraints.
We already have land on.
Yeah, on straits.
Yeah.
There we have that.
There's land available for use.
But opportunities goes to what can we use our strengths for? And so what I'm talking about is we have open land, we can do solar, that type of stuff. So land use opportunities.
Yeah, I like that on the opportunities because, even if you want to think mostly of this as being external stuff, the external thing is it's a way to attract the outside world
Yeah.
to come on in.
Right, it's
And
both.
The attraction isn't large manufacturers who live in Granby, the attraction is businesses that are outside Granby that come here.
So actually, one of the things that we included as strength, which is the higher education institutions around us, those are opportunities for us. They're outside.
Yes. Opportunities is the 5 colleges.
So then, underneath on the threat side, excluding land use opportunities, any idea generation would also be a threat that a surrounding community would try to do the same, take that opportunity from, or at least diminish.
So what if everybody else does the same thing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
How do you
How
want
do
to
you
do
say
that?
that? Yeah.
Competition.
Yeah, competition.
It's a good thing, I mean, you talk about that, and you think of the thousands and thousands of students that are just in the surrounding, you know, just really Amherst, right around here, and stuff like that, and we don't have any type of housing like these other towns do that thrive on this. You know, you try to be a sophomore or a junior in college and try to find off-campus housing. It's almost impossible.
And we have minimal low
Here we are,
income.
10, 15 minutes from all the major colleges.
We have minimum low income housing.
So is that an opportunity to be able to?
I think that's would be a weakness because that can create revenue from the state and the federal. Have low income
The
housing.
zoning probably, limits your, rental property.
It does.
So to that point, you drive up 116 in
Few
summer,
rentals.
and you see those buses coming out of UMass stopping in front of those condos and the apartment complex,
And
right
they
on
run-
116.
They run back and forth because with the 5 college consortium, they take classes at multiple places. So Mount Holyoke kids are going to UMass and, Smith and everywhere else, so they would be able to get a bus.
So a threat is transportation, regional, or whatever we call it, transportation in general.
Well, we put transportation under a weakness.
Well, it's not dependent on us, it's
No, we
dependent
actually
on.
Okay.
We have it as a strength because we're close to it.
Yeah, that's.
Well, he's talking about
Actually, that's right, you should move it to
You're not
opportunities.
directing it, it's happening through us.
Public transportation.
Close to
Yeah, you can put it
highways.
under opportunities, yeah.
Also an opportunity you can put down, potential for public-private partnerships.
So then close to highways and transportation needs to be removed from strengths?
Well, public transportation, I think, is a weakness.
Yeah, it is a weakness right there. Yeah.
On,
So that's a good point. If you can put public in front of transportation under
You're right.
threat,
yeah.
One other opportunity is the airport.
Say it again?
The airport is an opportunity.
The Westover Airport?
Mm-hmm.
what do we think about the casino? Does it have any impact?
I don't think
Negative or
so.
positive?
I think we're too far.
It's an external opportunity, but you can see on Route 33 in Chicopee how they're building up hotels. Because they're expecting an overflow, because they know the Big E gives them overflow. Well, if the Big E gives them overflow, the casino's gonna give them even more.
And then to what I was saying before, yeah, it's a great opportunity for the airport, but it's also a threat with Route 33 and Chicopee. Whatever we can do on the Granby side is probably going to be already laid out there.
I would put engineering up there, we just don't know how we can benefit from it. I mean, there's
Yeah,
many
sure.
us there.
Well, you talked about that, and right now, MGM is struggling to find people to work for them. And they're up over 5,000 jobs and looking for people. So we talked about, here we are 20 minutes from MGM, really, 25 minutes. So why not, reach out to people? Why would they want to live in Granby? Give people reasons why to move here though too. These are some of the people we should go out and try to, because you have people from different states and different parts of the state and stuff that are actually moving to this area to work at that casino.
Right.
It's for sale, we could buy it and run it. Make money.
That'd be a big ball.
Oh, yes. We're
Just like
just scratching the surface.
I think we need to come up with a way to capitalize on our small townness.
Well, tranquility or something along
Yeah.
those lines, you know?
Well, small towns that capitalize do it because they make themselves cute,
Right. Well, I mean, it's
tourist attraction, that
is there a
type
way
of stuff.
to bring back or reestablish the water wheel? Like that was super cute. You have a little shop.
Or even just driving through the center of town where the town hall is and this library,
Yeah.
right? I mean, when you think of a small town, you think of some area where the quaintness, the
right.
quintessential
And the church
shows
is
up.
beautiful. I mean,
So I would say town common
as a strength.
And it could also be an opportunity. Development of town common.
You know, the other,
Town common isn't the towns.
Yeah, I was gonna
No,
say
I know
that's-
that.
yeah,
But it doesn't mean that we can't cut a deal with the church.
That's a common,
I don't
But
know
it's such
where,
a place, it could be, sorry, that could be
No, that's
five
right.
years or something along that.
I don't know where we would put this, but the idea that we have so many farms, working farms in town that don't really work together.
How many working firms do you think there are?
Well, I mean,
1, 2, 3,
About 5.
4, 5.
Maybe
Put it
five.
on,
No, you know what an opportunity,
no, I'm not on that list.
you know what an opportunity might be?
Then you're not. In fact, I just remembered a 6th one.
Okay, but
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
there's 7.
there's not that many.
But we need to, are we involved with do we do anything? Do we have a presence at the Biddy or at Tri-County Fair or any of these things? St. Patrick's Day for Holyoke, do we have anything?
That's a good point. That's an opportunity for us to be involved in.
that's
outside.
exactly where I was going with
Yeah.
this.
Once
We
we figure out
have
who
these
we
great
are, we can try to sell it.
farms.
What do we want to say? How do we want to say it? Involvement of farmers in areas.
Showcasing farming.
Showcasing,
That's,
And another one I'd add to
our
that is,
farms. I mean, look at how lovely they are.
well, you have,
Sapowski's and Dickinson's and
Farming
Red
tourism,
Fire
yeah.
and Dave's. I mean, these are all
agritourism,
great
like
places.
Jen's been talking about.
But also, I think Granby's got one of the highest per capita horse things.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
so how about as an opportunity, agricultural tourism?
I got it.
That's it. Something, okay, good.
Where do we put the hot dog? That's
Oh, yeah, cities, hot dogs.
But I think this would be, we have those beautiful farm quilts, there should be, have those actually made into a quilt, and then you can start selling the town of Granby quilt. All those patches, there's 23 or 25 of them, right? Isn't there all those, for the 50th?
I have no idea.
There was about 27, I think.
We need a good quilter, and then to reproduce it.
So that was all the farms you're saying? There were
Yeah, so-
27 different?
It was the barns.
There was the old barns,
Uh-huh.
I haven't taken born
Me,
so, has anybody else done that?
I haven't yet. Something else, my barn wasn't in it. Well, there were some farms, and I don't know what my tree was. My family owns the old Slaheka farm on the corner of Aldrich Street, and it's one of the oldest barns, but it's been vinyl sided, so we're wondering if that's why we were excluded? What was the rule? I don't know what the criteria was.
You can contact the quilting committee because they're the ones that actually define all that.
Are they actually making a quilt of all those?
I don't think so. They did make the quilt that had the big water wheel in the center that they raffled off, but I don't think it had all the patterns that they put out on all the barns.
See, that's not much.
Who's making it?
Because I would buy
The
them.
quilting committee.
It's like the town of Granby quilt.
I gotta
Also,
go.
we have an alpaca farm where they make stuff to wear and
So why don't they have a store?
So I have another one,
Well, they do at the farm.
and I don't know if this would probably go in the weakness category. I would say the lack of a arts and cultural council.
Yeah.
But don't,
Like last week, the Hilltown had their basically art tour. You know, a lot of people show up and drive basically from house to house.
There is a cultural council. We used to call it arts and culture, but I don't know if it's just cultural. And I heard that Shayna Humphrey is actually heading it.
Well, I'm thinking more along the lines of what East Hampton has done over the last 10 years and what Belchertown has done over the last half a dozen years with their food truck festivals and their art shows and,
So I would put down
you know,
under,
bringing in microbrewers and,
I put down under opportunities to frame the park. We can run a lot of events out of there like that.
So vendor events at the frame, let's just put that, so we don't have any control of that.
or other type of town.
Or even like Hadley's got the flea market every Sunday, or,
Right.
you know, another Broomfield,
We
they come in
Nice microbrew.
yeah, everywhere.
Our dinosaur museum,
Strength?
yeah.
But back to you talking about the flea markets and stuff like that. But why not, I keep on going back to the farmer's market or something like that. We have all these different farmers in Granby. If, you know, once or twice a year, they all came together. And you just,
Farmers market,
you know, have
Yeah,
something like
Thomas
that.
Market would be great.
Yeah.
right on the commons
Oh,
there.
yeah. If you, I tell you what, if you're running Mass Pike and having the farmer's market on that Sturbridge exit there.
It was actually suggested in the master plan, the farmer's market.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. I think they tried it once and then they said it was too much work. But
They did
but
have
it
that-
doesn't mean we shouldn't put it there.
They
You know,
did, they did have that dinner, but all the farms contributed this year, remember
Like
that?
a
Farm to table or?
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe you could put it together.
So you look at the Amherst Farmers Market, they get people, I go there at least twice a month.
I think one of
People
the,
come in from all over the
I
place.
think one of the issues might be is that you have to decide whether or not a farmer's market is an attraction in and of itself, or whether the real purpose of it is to bring people to the area, and there are other things that they can do.
Mhm.
You know, you don't go spend a whole day at a farmer's market.
Well, farmer's
So once
market-
you're there,
farmer's
if you're gonna
market-
go one rather than another.
Farmers
what else
market
there
is
to
a
do?
tactic versus a strategy.
Yeah.
And so part of what we'll need to do is you need to differentiate your strategic plan, and then underneath that are the tactics that get you there. Your opportunities typically are considered to be tactical, and your strengths, you know, basically, that you play upon are more your strategies.
Well, and at this point, it's just.
But at this point, we're just throwing stuff out.
Yeah.
Or,
I would say municipal partnerships would be an opportunity for us, and lack of.
I'm gonna say we're vomiting on the page.
Yeah.
What else?
Who owns the Notch? I mean, I know the state runs it, but is it in Granby or is it actually? in-
The notch is on the Amherst.
Amherst, okay.
Talking about the visitor center? Are you talking about lane construction, or what are you talking about? You said the
Well, we have the Bachelor Street side of the range, and that's, you know, that's pretty interesting, that's a neat.
I didn't know that, that we had that, so.
Right, and that's another opportunity.
Yeah, that is an
Right.
We
option.
put it as parks there, but,
I would even put that in parentheses, so
Shades-
we don't
shades
lose sight of
rebellion?
that.
Where, for what, on parks?
yeah.
Shades of
Yeah,
Rebellion. It's
the
a
Bachelor
history
Street
Hiding horses out there by.
range, I'm not sure what it's
Yeah.
called.
If we put Bachelor Street Range.
Yeah, we could
right
set
away.
up that that's where people go hiking as opposed to the Notch.
Exactly.
Yeah, historic
Yeah.
landmarks,
That's a
actually,
great area
what you're
to-
saying. That's not,
Opportunity?
yeah.
And it's just a very small amount.
Well, then I think our weakness is that we don't really have a great historical society, you know, to be able to.
And then put that down,
We do have.
put that down under weakness.
I know we have one, but I don't think it's
Active?
active or.
Okay, I don't know. if
We
they-
actually have two, we have a historical commission
Right.
and we have a historical committee. The commission, that's what the state, right?
Does,
I
does
think-
Granby have significant history except for farming?
Oh, no, look at Kellogg Hall, look at them restoring it right now.
Right, that's, I mean, that's
It's
what
old.
they're doing.
That's, the historical people are doing that.
Yeah.
And that's why they're running all these fundraisers.
And so some of the things though that you you've all said is, well, we used to have this council, we do have a council, but it's not very active, so
It all-
that actually is sort of weakness.
It all go back to-
Somehow we don't,
It's like the structure of the town.
yeah, there's something with this.
It goes back to the weakness that they got up there, lack of participation by the townspeople.
Participation,
Empathy.
Yeah, and it's already under weakness, we already put up there, there's a lack of participation.
apathy,
Yeah.
apathy.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
well, with that, does indifference,
Apathy, indifference, yeah.
One of our other weaknesses also is declining youth population, increasing senior population.
Yes, the senior population
demographics?
is definitely increasing over the.
We need another piece of paper.
I moved that part of the meeting. Now it's time to go down for the other population.
So we need some more strength to counteract some of these weaknesses.
Everybody
Opportunities
to give you the switch.
The secret is never to stop.
Well, no, I mean, what you do is you look at the opportunities, and we pick one, and then we can develop it into a strength. That's how you change it, especially when you do something like this.
You know, over the Big E, every year they have state days, and they have towns and city days.
That's not, yeah.
Yeah, Granby Day?
Nope, but they have almost every other town day out there, and some
need to
days
get-
they share towns.
I know a lot of, like South Hadley has a town day, it's just on one of the other days. Like,
That's
it's usually
correct.
Like,
They
West
share it.
Springfield or something.
They share it that day.
The taste of Granby.
We don't have anything to taste. Cindy's.
Sure, we don't want to lease this place out as a restaurant?
I'm telling you, this is a prime location for a restaurant right here.
Yeah, that's what I think. Instead of for a town facility.
That should be like the first in mind.
This should be the place to have a restaurant and,
Absolutely. Believe me, I thought about it years ago.
yeah.
As a what?
As a weakness?
Prime spot.
We don't have restaurants?
Yes.
Remember
And
all these
also,
folks that
how
put-
about
Lack of attraction.
Well, why don't we put that down under opportunities, with old library as restaurants,
You know, it wasn't for.
opportunity.
It was, yeah, it was a church. They made it into a barbecue place.
Then a weakness becomes parking availability.
You can see,
Yeah,
like
great.
restaurants, Jim.
Just think about the guests.
Lots of takeout. Yeah, this should be a restaurant.
Or a little coffee shop or something.
So put slash coffee shop too, and that's a good point.
So you said, we have.
We used to have the Granby Cafe, right? Which was great.
Rezoning.
I love
What
that.
was that?
There's a restaurant.
I was saying, we were talking about the student days, one of the things that we required for rezoning somewhere along.
Anything is possible.
Restaurant.
Anything is
It's a
possible.
big place.
It's just gonna be approved by the voters.
Great idea.
And some, depending on where it is, what it is, some of it can be approved by special permit though too.
Yes, true.
So opportunity would be biking, trails.
Or, you know, we keep saying we have a lot of land and it's a strength. So we should think about how we can use some of that to do like biking trails or
We-
go-karts or, you know.
Weaknesses also, though, would be lack of place for people to stay. You know, we don't have, I think we have, what, one B&B?
We should do a water park.
So what
Yeah,
about,
one B&B and one hotel.
Yeah. So lack of accommodations
No,
is a
yeah, no
weakness.
lodging.
Weakness?
Yeah,
Yeah.
lack of accommodations.
and what about this Pioneer Valley Biking Commission that just, they're putting in these, you know, electric, they're in South Hadley at the Commons, I don't know if anybody has
South
noticed.
Hadley Falls is another one.
So there's one in the Commons, there's one in South Hadley, but there are, from what I heard on the news, just last night, this is the first time I heard it, there are 15 towns in the Pioneer Valley that are part of this consortium that now have these, you know, where you can pick up and drop off a bike, right?
For minimal charge, I think.
Yes. And so it's like, how did we miss that? You know, how did we miss these opportunities?
So, under opportunities also, I think we can add in, do we have solar up there?
Do now, it's even.
And also I'd add in internet, you know, if we did a leverage net type thing. So internet is an opportunity. Home-
What other
homegrown
towns
events.
are doing that we might be able to tap into like that?
Any more threats?
Patriots Day.
I mean, the rail trail, right? I mean, from Northampton to Belchertown.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some kind of spur to Granby.
The only way that would go is when Mass DOT comes to update Route 202. They're putting in those bike lanes on the side, like you see in South Hadley now, on the side of the street. They will be putting them in Granby, where they're redoing.
Yeah, that's part of it.
That's part of the infrastructure they're doing.
Under opportunities, what's happening with the Holyoke Mills? Are they redoing a lot of them, or?
They're making a lot of them into housing.
A lot of housing, then there's a new one that's I know I got an invitation to it. It's a banquet hall for weddings.
They have a pretty,
Yeah.
you know, it's.
Diverse.
It's emerging, but an arts
Yeah.
center, and it's
That arts is
starting
actually pretty
to
nice.
bubble up where.
Yeah. That might be an opportunity, but also, I mean, any startup type companies out of the,
Yeah, well, the ones by the canal,
Holyoke's put a lot of money to the canal walk and the canal area down there. A lot of money.
and the marijuana growers are looking to get into the canal buildings. Because they're not being used, and they can secure them, they're inside.
Close to water for your people.
They're on the other canal, so we're gonna talk about. Race Street. You just had, actually, just like off topic in Hoyoke, Race Street, they had MGM partner up with HEC, who just took over a building, we did the building, it's now called Culinary Arts Building.
So MGM, I mean, getting them to partner up with us for something,
Right?
It's always a possibility.
They got the money,
Yep,
right?
Teach our kids to be valets.
we got the land.
So what about the idea of, and I know it goes back to some of the things that we've already written down, but this lack of community, like this more macro look at our town, right? It goes to the apathy or the indifference, right? We don't seem to have this common sense of
There's no community spirit. Like there's
Yeah.
no
Or for a
morale.
restaurant to meet and like talk.
But I also think we can fix that if we,
yeah.
I still
So
look at
no
that first
community
year,
center.
activity directors. And activity directors.
That's what we should do for West Street.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Oh, I didn't even know West Street.
But you know what, we did have that with the master plan, you know, there was some momentum going with the master plan project.
Maybe in terms of the community, it's also the sense in the town that we've always done it this way, why change?
Yeah,
One of the things I think is a weakness that is we don't have a town pool or like a town rec center, whereas a lot of the surrounding communities
Yeah,
either have a splash pad or something.
Yeah.
somewhere to meet,
Yeah,
I don't know what was that one, aversion to change.
Yep.
weakness.
No, there's not a lot of Yankees here. No.
it depends on what your definition is.
How long has your family been here?
How do you spell changing?
How many generations?
So I have a question here, we talked about the aging population. We talked about, you said cheap housing, very expensive housing.
Mhm.
But then on the other side of the spectrum, we've got some homes that are really expensive. I guess my question, and I don't know where it fits in here, is do we have anything to offer people in the middle that we're trying to attract? Who probably aren't going to be interested in some of that inexpensive housing. Some of the housing that's there would require some money to redo electrical or plumbing or something to get it to where they would want to like. How do we approach that? Where is that?
Well, there's a lot of housing for sale in Granby if you go to Zillow.com.
Yeah,
There's a lot of housing for sale.
but I know people that are trying to move in, and the comments I'm getting are houses are either way too small or way too expensive.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So they just had an article about that in the news, they're talking about the
the housing market right now, and the demand for houses is out there. The problem is that people are getting tapped out for the houses, so the demand's there. So they're saying that the demand is there, but people aren't buying because people are purchasing houses for what people are asking for.
Over
And
asking
over,
the
it's
price.
become like bidding war, so they're not getting a deal where they would then offer someone something for, oh yeah, I'll take, no, because they know.
Like the one, down the end of Cold Hill Road, it's not on Cold Hill, but at the very end, sold for $1 million, and they're probably putting 500,000 into it, driving by, looking at it.
British
Yeah.
Lane.
Yeah.
So I would put changes in the economy as a threat. What is it? We put state funding somewhere.
Yep.
we did.
Declining state funding.
Decline
State
state
funding,
funding.
that's a threat on the other side, on the first
Yeah.
page.
Mhm.
So, other bedroom communities in our area would be.
I think we're the last one standing.
I guess my follow-up was gonna be, you know, what do those towns look like? Do they have a town center? Do they have these things that
Well,
we're wanting?
they're typically,
What are other successful bedroom communities look like?
Yeah,
well, Long Meadow is the one that comes to mind in terms of being successful.
yeah,
That
they
is true, but
have,
see-
they have the Long Meadow shops, you know,
Yeah,
they
but
have
see-
that whole section.
You can't,
Restaurant.
you're 100% right. Long Meadow was a bedroom town, but they only have 9 miles of roads. Granby has 65 miles of roads.
Mhm.
So you can't really compare the two as far as bedroom towns, because it's smaller there, it's more congested, everybody's combined, versus here, it's all sparsely populated.
So, but
Well,
in
it
terms
only
of,
has 9 miles of road.
They have no school buses.
What about East Long Meadow?
That's a different story.
And they're more of a bedroom community, and yet, again, I mean,
But they also have a
Restaurants.
Hasbro and other-
yeah,
They've got some, there's some fairly big
Yeah, they-
businesses there.
on the line, they have Hasbro, American Saw, all that for industry there.
When I was growing up, I was always sort of told like Belchertown, Hadley, Granby,
You're right, but Hadley and Belchertown
I don't
grew
know,
up.
yeah,
Yes.
they,
but they're not,
they're no longer there.
they're not bedroom towns.
They're not, that's what I mean.
Not anymore.
That's why I feel
Yeah.
like, when I stand behind and say, I feel like we're the last one left, because we really have,
You're right, it's hard to think of,
Belchertown and Hadley are totally different. They're not-
but they weren't always.
No,
No, they
they're not
were
in the
very
same ballpark. I mean, Hadley.
not anymore.
But even 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
When I moved into Granby, Belchertown was
More
the
rural.
older brother of Granby. They were not much farther ahead
No,
than
but that's what I'm
us.
saying, is that Belchertown is a bedroom community. They don't have any really major businesses there.
But they're a successful bedroom community.
They
They
have
have-
your Stop and Shop, they've got that whole like, there's a McDonald's, there's a CVS, there's, I don't know,
But I'm just saying,
The
it's-
golf
Percentage
course?
of revenue can't be coming from the industry.
no, I mean, it's not like they're taking in tens of millions of dollars from me.
right, but how about, okay, but how about, let's say, how about a town like Munson or a town like Hamden? They have bedroom communities.
Yes.
Yeah, they're closer to.
Rural.
But I agree, Hadley is much bigger. in terms
Lots of-
commercial base.
Lots of roads,
I'm gonna make a great horse.
and yeah, Hamden's got Great Horse,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe
Monson has got,
by
well, they have their version of McDuffie,
Westover. Missed that.
so,
No, we put it in for it.
And what are those
No,
communities
golf
like?
All the rest of it.
Munson,
Hamden actually's got an area like nice restaurants, that type of thing.
and so does Munson, they have.
Munson, I don't really know much
But
about.
They have that
if
whole
you
like
look at it,
downtown area.
Hadley was, their planning was smart. They said Route 9 is gonna become our commercial base.
yeah, but it's out of control now.
Well, but they let it go that way, on
Yeah.
purpose. They said, nowhere else in Hadley is it gonna be commercial, except Route 9.
In fact, they
Yeah,
have
that's
more
just
protected
also-
agricultural land than anywhere else. Just they said,
Yep.
we're giving up 9, and then everything else we're protecting.
That's right, they protected
They've
everything.
done a good job.
They did an excellent job. And Belchertown kind of did the same thing with Route 9 and 202.
They've done an excellent job until you actually want to go on Route 9 on a Saturday morning and get some errands done.
You're right. If you
Then
want to
you're
try to go
pulling
to
your
North
hair out.
Hampton side where the road narrows, yeah, I
Where are you
agree.
going to get your errands done?
I'm just
Yeah, so they
throwing
did
that out
something,
there.
right?
Yeah. No, but still, that's the point,
Yeah.
right?
We need something
Yeah.
that's here.
So in terms of other bedroom towns, would you consider any of the hill towns to be bedroom towns or not?
Or even
Hilltown
Athens,
is
or,
more
you know, like Dickinson's
More
is
rural,
trying, but.
yeah.
I mean, if you go down 202, you know, heading,
Putting in a bakery.
you know, like towards Boston, Pelham, stuff like that, there's towns like
Roscoe's, yeah.
same kind of situation that town, they have the same thing that we have.
Yeah, but the biggest thing when you get to Pelham, the rest of them, they regionalize their school system, which has cut their expenses.
That's one thing we haven't put down here at all. is the
Yeah, we
schools.
haven't, we should put that
Well,
down.
we got
It's like the elephant in the room. We don't have.
No, it's not,
We have-
It's in a string.
I said it a long time ago,
They put it in a string.
we put it there.
I really have the duffy.
No,
Oh, schools, okay.
Yeah, but you could also then, we could also argue that,
Nice job.
You could argue that weakness is the cost of the schools.
That's right.
yeah, so cost of school is a weakness. It's also a threat, combined with declining population.
We got that on here, I think, right?
Do we have,
Demographics.
all right, do we have declining population under threats?
What's it again?
Declining population under threats,
Declining younger population,
yeah.
but we have an increase in senior population.
Well, you know, the truth is, you can only increase for so long, right? Eventually, we're all gonna go somewhere, so, you know, new people will come in.
It's like,
Yeah, it's a
it's
cycle.
like before, that cycle, it's almost like a neighborhood.
Yeah.
But if we're
Eventually,
gonna
turn it over.
try to have it become an older age place where people come, like a retirement community, then we still need to do something for them, like, you know, there's not a really great senior kind of activity, you know?
Well, there's talks about a new senior center,
But I think that goes back to
conservation
before,
center.
Yeah.
and I don't know where this fits in there, but if we've got a declining, or if we've got an aging population, and we know it's gonna go cyclical, how do we start planning
For it
The
now,
boom.
for the next generation, or whatever we wanna call it, to start?
We've got these demographic issues, but that's all superimposed on the fact that we're really a small community. We don't have very many people.
What is our town population, it's like 60 something?
6,000 people.
Well,
Plus or minus.
Yeah.
You know, I've been doing some research over the last couple of weeks on
No, we're
specifically
60,
small,
45.
vibrant towns in the US.
Mhm.
And I'm talking towns, some of them are 1,500 people.
Mhm.
And they still have these vibrant little areas
That
that are
people come-
attracting
people
people.
show
They
up.
tend not to be spread out.
Yeah,
Granby is very few people and we're spread out over a large
Spread out
area.
is fine if you have an area where people can go on a Saturday morning and grab a coffee or whatever, seeing other people, having conversations, creating more of a sense of community where we're sort of all in this together.
yeah, so
It's
level of
it's not that that
weakness,
can't be done, but I think it's much harder than it is in a small town to create something.
so I would say under
And we would
weakness,
like to get that, but I
Yes.
think
My
the size
point
of the
is,
town.
my point is that other towns are successfully doing it and have done it. And
so we get both a weakness and opportunity here. The weakness is lack of a town center, or, you know. The opportunity is creation of a town center. You know, the vibrant type thing that people come to. We might be able to do that through zoning change,
Spread out to 65 miles of road is an
That's,
opportunity.
yeah.
65 miles of road with a small population.
that's a good point, Jay, compare us to another city or town that has 65 miles of road. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Compare what their population is to ours.
Yes, but let's also, it's worth saying, and I think I may have said this, or I know I was thinking it, that we have the best roads. You leave Granby and you drive
Come
to
be
surrounding
negotiable.
towns. I'm telling you, we have incredible roads in this town.
On the main road, yes, the regular, when you get to the real streets, they're getting very bad.
Yeah,
They really
not
are.
in comparison when you go to like Boston, or even through the potholes.
Amherst
this side road right out here is one of the nicest ones I've been on.
Well, it just was air. You just see the people out there clapping when the
I would
pavers.
also say that we have, whatever the mileage of roads is,
Yep, 65.
we don't need to build it all up, right? We don't need to go over it.
Yeah,
We
we're
talked
talking
about
about
it.
it.
So the
Yeah.
opportunity
So we're
is
getting to
fix it.
solutions.
Yeah.
What other
So that's
opportunities?
the
Usually with
Where
65
else?
miles of road on, you know, both sides of the equation, is we get the spread out,
Yeah,
and yet we have to maintain the road, so that's an additional cost to us.
right.
So both sides,
So it's the idea of space and the cost of space.
Yeah, for whatever reason, our 1964 master plan, which was the last one for that one, thought that we were gonna get to 30,000 by year
30,000 people?
Yeah, and I bumped into Sunderland's as I was looking for those master plans from 1974. They were saying, oh, you know, we may be over 5,000 and close to 9,000. You know, just suddenly it's from 9,000 to 9,000, and they have, I don't know, 3,000 people, 2,500 people, something like
I
that.
wonder if they thought Westover was gonna expand or
For some
something.
reason, they thought there would be a lot more people in Western Massachusetts.
You see, one of the major weaknesses of Granby, we have a lot of land, but not all that land is buildable.
Yes.
That makes everything
Wetlands.
spread out, because we have a lot of wetlands.
Yeah,
That's true too.
that is true.
But that's,
That can be a plus as far as getting out in the country.
well, that's what a lot of people, that they like the neighbors are not home. The neighbors are a little ways away.
Like when I bought my property, I made sure 3 sides had conservation land and I was in the middle.
Well, I think going back to the map, we already all know that we have plenty of space
Yes.
and we're not building, we're not developing on any of that space. We know that we're already restricted and yes, potentially if something else comes up, you can change the zoning. But we already know what we're looking at. We're looking at the town common, right? Some bits and pieces there. We're looking at 5 corners, right, along 202. So,
Right, you're right. So what we have for general business, what we have for commercial in town, how much of that is already taken up? Yes, we have it, but what's really available?
A lot,
that is the question.
well, a lot of it is already owned by people that own large segments of it, and they're waiting to, they have two words when you talk to them. Number one, I'm waiting till I get a good price for the land, because they want big bucks for it. Well, the other one's, it's been in my family for years, and we're not about to sell
We're
it.
walking down to there's not a lot of open land.
Well, if you start by the, used to be Cash and Carry,
Yeah.
stating myself, right? So there's a building that's there, and there's space there, and then right when you come into town on that side of the road, there's
The land between the Polish Credit Union and the Oak Street Lumber, which is owned by Steve Carpenter.
right, and then
Yeah, so some of that's
Mass,
not,
that's what
right, some of that's not buildable.
That's the problem we run into.
One of the things I think, hearing all this, it has to be studied and come back to get a better idea of this.
Yeah.
We know what exists now, this strip along 202 corner, but there is a lot of land. We don't know, well, there's hints about that, although there's a lot of land, it's not suitable for businesses, it's wetland. There's a lot of land that's in the middle of neighborhoods that you wouldn't use.
Or it doesn't perk.
Or it doesn't perk, so lots of it, and that should be part of, I think, one of the things which we want to find out more about.
Exactly.
So ideally,
Because it's nice to say, well, we're not restricted to the corridor. or to-
What about
this
buffalo?
this analysis, the SWOT analysis, ideally would be done after
Yeah.
that type of data collection, so that we know what the parameters are.
Right.
So I think one of our strengths, but I don't know how to put it, but is Munson Ridge. So you look at a 80-plus home development that's going to be going up there in the years to come. So that's, I don't know where to put that, that's a huge development for a town our
So new
size.
developments.
Opportunity, right?
Yes.
And that's
You know, we
provided
also
with
have
that. But I
buildings
don't think they go into it.
that are
Not a lot of it.
vacant and, like the old police department.
Under threats.
Now,
phase two.
West Street and
Aging,
the old council on aging.
Yeah, so under weaknesses, abandoned
There's probably
buildings.
Abandoned buildings.
Yeah.
But if you get 50 houses up
Under threat, I would say declining population in Western Massachusetts. That's external to us, but that's reflecting on us.
So do we want to listen?
Well,
Maybe the-
even broader, declining rural population that move back to the cities.
One of the things we've been looking at with the Energy Committee is that SMART program, which I talk about with the solar. Our biggest problem with that is we need our substation upgraded because it cannot take no more power from the grid. And because we're so sparsely populated, it's not a very large substation. And there's other communities out there that want that solar money as well as we do, but they already have the infrastructure in place, so it's not gonna cost National Grid anything to do it. If they want to come into Granby, it's gonna cost National Grid to upgrade that substation.
Maybe we have to have the first wind farm.
A lot of wind comes
We have the
over the
land.
mountain.
We have the land, right?
And we don't have to worry about wetlands and
So
perking.
alternative energy is, alternative renewable energy, that's our,
Because you're the one who's on the mountain.
All right, so under weaknesses would be substation.
Well, the weakness is the sparsely population doesn't let us have
Yeah,
a
but
bigger
we
substation.
don't have a good enough substation as it is, so.
That's correct.
So you had something?
Yeah, we talk about the declining population in Western Mass, but then there are opportunities since it's an external event, is these rail lines being spoken about between, out of Hartford, going up north, and
In Boston.
then getting to Boston.
Yeah, that's already on the other side. We got that under transportation.
Yeah, well, I think
I'll be
everybody
straight.
should
you
pick that
can
up.
specify what we
I don't think Granby, I don't think that's unique to us.
Because that's what we put under public transportation on the other side.
I mean, maybe take about 5 more minutes and wrap up,
Yeah.
and then we'll get into the part of the meeting. So, a few more ideas, and
I'll keep writing.
All right. On the second page, there's nothing on the string.
Yeah, I see that.
No, that's the problem. I mean, but that's where you then look at those opportunities and see if we can convert it.
there is very small writing on the first page, though.
Yes, I squished in a lot
Yeah.
on the first page.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not so much.
No, it's just,
Well, is there
A
anything
lot of
about,
weaknesses.
I would say that the, well, it's strange for a small town. Say it again?
It's a lot of strange for a small town.
it is, but also, you know, we keep on saying that this sense of community is, you know, we talk about indifference, apathy, but I still see a lot of people well connected because they're, you know, town residents.
yeah, but a lot of people too that don't want to move here because they get the sense of being outsiders.
But that doesn't change the fact that we
I
have,
think our
we have
strength is
a,
that.
we have a connected community.
Is that just a
Outside of the strength.
What?
I think that indicates.
Yeah, you know,
I think it's strange we talked about our schools, but as you
I was gonna
mentioned
say
before.
that. I think it's really connected to this, when kids are in school,
Right.
you know. I definitely feel a lot more isolated as a townsperson now that my kids are grown and gone.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, I don't, it's like, it was, the sense of community was there one day and then it disappeared the next.
So that would be under weakness, you know, post-school
So we
lack of
don't- we
community.
don't-
Well, that's kind of is answered in all these, because there's no community center, there's no restaurants. If you have those things, instead of going to
Yeah.
Hadley or Northampton, you go in, you're gonna see people.
That's where I'm running into people in
Right.
other towns when I'm doing my grocery shopping or whatever. It's not in my own town.
If you go to Amherst, apparently you run into Harrison Ford. I mean,
Right.
We don't have that opportunity.
What?
Harrison
Yeah,
Ford
yeah.
said,
Are you serious?
Placard, placard,
It was
and
phone
their son-
shopping.
They think he was, their son is like in his teens, was at one of the Nike camps at Amherst College.
See, one of the other problems.
Focus, back.
Yes.
Yes.
One of the issues, and I'll just use the development that I'm in. In the summer, the neighbors have a lot of involvement because we're walking around in good weather. But because the lots have to be a minimum of an acre in size, makes them farther apart. So you're not as close to your neighbors as like South Hadley or anywhere else that can build a home on a smaller lot. They're more congested.
So,
We're spread out.
There's more
more.
streets.
so under weakness, current zoning structure.
Yeah.
No, the zoning, you got to do, you have to have an acre.
We did it a lot for mixed development.
I guess, and
You don't
one
have
of our
to.
weaknesses
You can
is,
always make
is
changes,
cul-de-sacs.
but
You got to
No,
go to the board of health for the
no,
well.
We don't have a lot of
Can you do all that?
neighborhoods.
You're not gonna make any
No,
changes.
we do not have a lot of neighborhoods. We
Very,
have a lot
very
of
and then you can see that on Halloween.
Yeah.
There is not a lot of neighborhoods at all.
No,
Yeah,
I
but
get
other
I get a lot of truckloads of
That's
people
right.
that come to my street,
Right.
because we have such,
I mean,
But
it's
a lot of towns that
like Lynn
have that,
Drive and
they have an
Chicken
event
Circle
for
is like
kids.
community for, like,
Yeah, very few.
you know?
And that's the pro. and-
What
Yeah.
am I reading? What did you say?
I don't know if there's an idea there. We're talking about, clusters of houses.
Right, we're
Yeah.
talking about the cul-de-sacs and neighborhoods.
and what doesn't link these streets, even Lynn Drive, those streets there, is there's no sidewalk, right? So I would never let my kids walk when they were little down
So
to
no
Oak
sidewalk
Street.
is a weakness.
Yeah, I couldn't think of it. Are there any
Craziness.
sidewalks in town, anywhere?
By the CVS building.
Yeah,
You go walk in front of CVS.
Yep,
Yeah.
five corners, right?
Well, we asked for the sidewalk, we thought that 202 was gonna get
Maximilian.
sidewalks.
Maximilian wants to connect it.
Maximilian has them, yeah.
And so does, Muzzle Ridge.
Munson Ridge, Cape Pines is gonna get them too.
But those weren't done by the town.
No, they were made
That was the
by,
developer that
By
put
the
the
planning
sidewalk.
right.
Yeah.
The planning board had to develop the bill, just like Cape Pines, Maximilian.
So we are talking about, what was I gonna say?
I don't know.
What we're talking about.
We're talking about something.
all right, well, why don't we do
Piece
this?
of paper.
Why don't we spread them out, take photos and circulate that, that way we all have a photo of
Well,
this is what we're
can
doing.
somebody just put them,
So we don't transfer this.
yeah, to, electronic document, because we need to get them to Lori for one thing, so she can review them. And
Want me to
if-
just type them up into bullets? Is that what you're?
Can you do that?
I'm certainly capable of
We would appreciate that tremendously.
Very much so.
And put it up on the website.
doing. Alright, once I figure out how to get out.
You talk about
But
the
we're gonna
website,
get a
Rob.
link to the
You're
website.
gonna get
Oh,
a-
right, oh,
yeah.
perfect.
That might be a nice thing though, too, is to have that on the website, so people from town can put stuff like that up on there too.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, I would suggest that, like, Mark Vale has his Facebook page, Granby Town Meeting, and he's the administrator, and a requirement to be in there is you have to be a Granby resident, and Mark controls it that way. But then he only has 687 followers,
Right.
so, you know, what's better? Having something like Granby Forward, which is public, versus Granby Town Meeting, which is private.
Not everybody's on Facebook, believe it or not.
Oh, I believe that too. I'm just using that as an example. A public page will draw more than a private page, is all I'm saying.
Well, there's a when pro that, because you don't want people from outside to tell us why would be reasons to come to Granby.
Oh,
So that.
Yeah,
and also get some
but
other
we don't wanna
stuff.
we don't wanna get trolled and we don't wanna have to,
Yeah.
Right, doesn't mean it's a pro or a con.
yeah, we don't wanna be having, this is.
We can start the way that it is, and it's
Yeah.
always easy after a few weeks to see what happens to change the structure.
Yeah.
What Lori said is when we do this process, it's like taking a trip on a road. You know where you are, and you know where you want to go, and that's how you plan your route. But as you go along the way, you see points of interest, you see detours, you see all this stuff. That's when you have to address them as you go. And I thought that was a good analogy.
Yeah.
I think that's a good analogy too, because, you know, we call it a roadmap, but, you know, when you explain it that way, it makes a lot more
And I
sense.
also
Where you want to go
think
and
that-
how you get there.
Yep.
Yeah.
The idea of trolls, you know, I'm thinking along the lines that you're thinking. Let anybody put in their feedback, whether they live in town, not live in town, because we can shut it off.
The beginning of it can be just wide open, there's no limits. We could set
Well,
up-
we have to say, we have to put it somewhere.
Yeah.
You'll start to see themes, right? I mean, you'll
Yeah,
start
that's
to
why it says out as a
understand
blog
themes.
that people can post.
Yeah, and then, you know, if it starts getting nasty and mean, shut it
You've
down.
got, you do.
I think we all have thick enough skin where we can handle some.
We do have some restaurants in town, so I don't want to offend the restaurant owners in town. They're early month, they have happy days. But I mean, I know we talked
I love
about
that
that.
place.
Yeah. And we just find some people go to early month in the morning, they'll sit there and
I
talk.
love that.
Is today the 27th?
It is.
That's your turn to buy a Cindy. You were gonna buy the 27th.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
So are we closing the question?
Sure, sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anytime, I'll subscribe anytime. I am now agreeing on various places.
Are we closing a question?
Okay, we have to talk about,
I will be here on the 17th.
Do we pose a question on this,
on 17th.
this
You won't be able to
website that
put
Rob?
this
I don't know, is that, yeah.
I would think so.
To kind of get some,
By Friday?
I thought that was part of.
Oh, that'd be great.
Generation plan.
If I have time tomorrow, I'll do it.
Great.
Couple nights and then we'll do it.
okay. I think,
We can
let's come on back together.
do the idea generation online as well. That's why I have the idea generation guide up there. It's part of that.
Is the website open that I can post these notes?
Yeah,
Or-
sure.
All right, Jennifer, you're gonna do this in something like a Word document?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it'd be worth emailing the copy to
Okay, I'll
the
do
committee
it.
members too.
Yeah, when you go to Tom and Granby WordPress.com, at the homepage, up in the right-hand corner, it says write. You hit write, and then it should open up as a blog post.
Okay, let's wrap up. We've been here for a while. I think that, I think this was a very good meeting tonight, and I think gave us an indication of some of the kinds of things that can be accomplished when we're all basically looking in the same direction. And I think that was very important. We need to figure out who is doing what before July 17th. Now, July 17th, the next meeting is set, and Lori is coming from the planning council. We want to be able to get her the information that we generated tonight in a form which is useful to her.
That's correct.
And so we need a couple of volunteers, I think, to go through Jennifer's notes after she gets out by the weekend, to sit down and put that in a form that can be used by somebody else. So I'm nominating you, because you know Jennifer, and I mean, you know Lori, and work with her.
You can ask how low you want it to, it would
Yeah,
sell for
and-
her.
I'll give her a call tomorrow.
Yeah.
So do I have another volunteer to you and Mike?
Yeah, what am I doing?
You're taking the stuff that Jennifer is going to send out in this raw form, and you're going to put it into a format with the kind of, in a way that that will appeal to Lori and that she wants to see it in as she hears from us.
Well, my plan was to take the document, whatever you give me, Word PDF, and I was going down to Pioneer Valley Planning and sit with her at her desk, and then let her glean it out the way she wants, and then go from there. So, that way it works.
But she willing to take the time to do that without any, okay. Well, then will she put it back in a form and come back to us and tell us what she's heard?
Probably not to the 17th.
That's what I mean, on the 17th, she'd come
Yeah.
back and tell us.
That's the current plan, her and I talked.
Okay, all right. How's that sound there?
Because she's already got
That's
the
good,
master
yeah.
plan.
Yeah,
And then she can take the master plan against what we just did with this exercise and compare it to the master plan and see if there's any changes.
Great.
So she'd have an idea of what the town of Granby was and what the town of Granby is as perceived by us.
Good.
Not perceived by the town, as perceived by us.
right.
Do we have enough information for her?
Probably not, but that's fine, because
Just to
as,
start is all we need.
Yeah.
all she wants is a beginning. She wants the foundation, where, she wants to learn about Granby. She wants to know where we're starting. She knows everybody who wants to go down the road, increase revenue, do all the things. She knows that. The question is, what rest areas are people gonna stop at? What detours are they gonna have to take to get to their destination? And how can we eliminate those? The rest areas can be like the places to stop, whether it's Dufresne's Park or something like that to attract, versus the detours will be the problem areas we need to address. That's how we've been talking.
I think,
As long as it's,
type it up, there's gonna be stuff that looks like it might almost be duplicates or,
no, that'd be no problem, because I'm gonna sit with her.
And I think it's good that Jay's actually going to sit there with her, so he can talk to her about it, let her know what our thoughts were too. We're talking about something, yeah. That's huge, yeah.
Is there anything else that we need to get ready before she comes on this? Any other kind of information that she needs? from us?
I think right now, between the master plan, because it is massive, really, if you dig into the master plan, and with this information, from the beginning, I think that's good enough, because part of her first day there is she's going to want to educate us in the, how she put it, the structure of a development and growth plan. So we have to come under that structure and to see how it fits in.
You know, and I think what we should do too, I know we're made up of a few boards here, but I think this July 17th meeting, we should invite the other boards and committees in town to it. I mean, definitely the planning board, I think, you know, I'm a member, I think the whole planning board should be invited to it, as well as some of the other.
That's a good idea.
I was gonna suggest that for the second meeting with her. In other words, let's get her feet wet with us and get organized before we bring other people in.
But I like to be there to start, just to hear what's being talked about. You know, because this isn't just about us here, there's other.
I'm not saying it's about us here, I'm just saying we need a starting point.
Well, that is a starting point, but I'm not saying that they're being active parts.
It's not an open meeting.
It's not an open meeting,
okay,
it's for them to
okay.
see what's being talked about.
It's not a participatory meeting.
Right.
The only people participating would be her for the most part.
Yeah,
Right.
Doing the presentation and then the education part of it and stuff like that, based upon the strategic outline which she gave us already.
yeah, and that's a very good point. Actually, I'd like to speak for a moment to our TV watching audience. If you're still with us and still listening to this, and you've heard then what's going on in this meeting, I would suggest that you tell your friends and neighbors and acquaintances that if they can get onto the internet and watch this on YouTube, to please do so, and tell them to start when we started the SWOT routine and end when we ended the SWO routine, because that's kind of the important thing, that you will hear from there that we're very much interested in trying to get the town involved, trying to get townspeople involved. And one way to do it is to listen to the kinds of things that were being discussed in the spirit in which they were discussed tonight, and be ready in the future to come and participate in some of the public participatory meetings and give us your input, because it's our community and it's only going to do what we want it to do. So thank you very much.
And one of the other things to add, which we didn't do tonight, which is gonna come, how many times is the same thing mentioned? Look at the quantity.
Some ideas will keep recurring.
Right, and the more that occur from the community, that is the more the community values, because they're bringing it out.
Right. Do we have anything else to do tonight? Nope. Without that, I'll take a motion to adjourn and see you all on the 17th. Thank you very much.